Alright, so today we are heading over to Tamarack to check out a roof repair for a client, and we have another stop in Fort Lauderdale, and then two stops in Boca Raton, and then one stop in Boyan before we head back to our current project in Wellington, where we are doing a re-roof or a concrete roof. So in this quick video while I'm driving, I'm going to give you guys my few points and just some of the things I thought about the amazing event that we had for America's 250-year anniversary with the UFC White House event. I think it was one of the best, coolest, most admirable events I have ever witnessed in my entire life. And I say this for a few things. I do watch sports. In most cases, I rather watch the main championship game than be a full-on fan and watch every single game. I'm typically more in tune, like most people, more in tuned to the championship match or event when it comes to either the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals. However, I am a big fan of the UFC, so I typically watch all their fight nights and I watch all their pay-per-views, or now on Paramount we can finally watch it without, you know, having to pay $70-80 like before. This was one of the most magnificent events I've ever witnessed in my life for a few reasons. Number one, it was the way how America was portrayed. The patriotism, the camaraderie. You know, sometimes we've watched the Super Bowl, how, you know, sometimes you can enjoy the teams playing, but sometimes you hear the people say, oh, you know, the party is one of the best parts about the Super Bowl and the commercials. When it comes to the UFC, that never crossed my mind during the reason why I was going to watch it. It was because I am a fan of each and every fighter that steps foot into that cage. Of course, I am fans of some of them more than others, especially Justin Gaethje. I started watching the UFC a little bit after Conor McGregor's reign, and that's sort of when a lot of these fighters started just becoming more fine-tuned within their skills. It was Dustin Poirier, you know, Max Holloway's winning and then starts losing against Volkanovski. Then you have Justin Gaethje just putting, you know, 5-round wars event after event. Other great fighters around that time, you know, Kamaru Usman. Those were, you know, the people right after Conor McGregor that sort of just solidified the sport for a lot of the people coming in during that time. And I have to say, that event, everything from the lighting, the risk they had to take to be able to show this in an outdoor venue, the security measures, having to protect everything going on in such a you know, political and tension-filled atmosphere, where you had people on one side of the group saying, you know, they're using taxpayer money and the only people watching the fight are the ultra elite millionaires and billionaires, when you could see right on the stands, right on the seats, that a lot of the people there were service members, were people from the community. And yes, the political figures were, you know, the ones with the most advantage. But remember, there are a lot of political people that sometimes are not within our line of sight that, you know, deserve to go to an event. People that maybe work in an office and don't have to deal with the camera part of business, that, you know, and everyone needs to get an opportunity to sort of feel the patriotism here in America. And I think that once you look throughout the crowd, it was a mixture of service members and people from politics that, you know, maybe don't have a chance to do something like this. The way they were able to flow their American ads within each fight, the way that the walkouts started inside of the White House, and you can easily see the fighters just sort of in their own head walk through it all and just soak in all the energy, soak in all the history inside that place. Man, it was one of the most magnificent events I've ever seen in my life. I felt like a kid watching from the very first fight to the last. And that was just how it felt. The other part that was incredible was how insane it was to see all 7 fights end in a knockout. I think that was one of the most incredible events I have ever witnessed. I stayed up the entire time. It was funny because my 1.5-year-old got up at 12 midnight and would not go back down, so we ended up just watching it till 2 a.m. and it was funny how in some of the parts where, you know, fighters got knocked out, she started clapping. I'm like, oh my God, I think she knows what's going on. So it was just a magnificent event. The way each fighter went over to Trump at the end of the fight, shook his hand and thanked him for everything he's done. I mean, really, like, I'm so proud to live in this country. And when you see the people that you stand behind elevate and push the country in a direction that some may not be okay with, but for the general base and for the general good of the country, we all know, we all have common sense. You know, we all have common sense in how we carry our lives and how we treat our own family. And there are certain things that whether you believe one thing or another, you know what's right. And I mean, I feel like this event just was a perfect mixture of it all. It was just magnificent from beginning to end. I don't think this event could ever be topped. I think the previous event that I would consider this was Noche of in the Sphere. The Sphere event was magnificent because of the picture and the music, everything involved within that Sphere theatrical event was pretty amazing. But this one was just over the top, watching the bombers planes fly overhead, the American Eagle just fly throughout the crowd. I mean, I get goosebumps just talking about this right now because it's just not something that we're used to watching. I mean, guys, remember, we're coming from a 10 to 15 year mark where you had individuals, you know, not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, not stand for Star Spangled Banner. You know, it's wild, you know, and I get it. Everyone wants to, you know, make their own point, make their base, but man, this is America. Even if you're a football player that makes 100 million, 150 million, whatever it may be, buddy, you can have your point, you can be political as you want, but at the end of the day, you're an extra on a sport and you get paid to play a sport. So play your sport, man. You try to get into the political sphere of things when you honestly don't know half the things you think you know. And sometimes you just come across, you know, like a Kaepernick. At the end of the day, you know, people are going to forget about you, and some of the things you do, some of the antics that you push, they will be remembered. So, you know, it was just such a magnificent event. Everything about it was insane. You know, they talked about how they spent over $60 million setting everything up. And I mean, I don't know. I was so proud to be an American watching the event. And I have to give my flowers to every single fighter, even the ones that some of us may think that should have not been there. The way that the last 2 fights ended in such a historic and moving manner, where we thought that 2 of the guys that would win, they ended up losing, and they lost in a fashion. They lost by getting knocked out. And that is the difference between getting submitted sometimes and getting knocked out. When you get knocked out, there's nothing you could have done, or maybe there was, but your body didn't let you. And that is the difference in a UFC event. You have 2 fighters putting all their energy, all their skill, all their mental fortitude on the line with their coach and team behind that cage. It's not like any other sport. Every other sport has so many factors, from teamwork to even the weather and it's, you know, the environment of where you're playing. You know, there's so many factors. But when it comes to fighting, a leg kick is a leg kick, a jab is a jab, an uppercut is an uppercut, and it only matters how good you are to defend every single strike coming at you. And I gotta say, I mean, you know, sometimes, as you know, we fans, we wait for those events where we're just getting knockout after knockout. And I mean, this one just culminated everything. I mean, and just Gaethje reading the Declaration of Independence before walking out of the Oval Office. Guys, come on. How can you not? I mean, if I was him, I would be honest, I'd retire. I'd retire, because that is just the pinnacle of, I would think, in my life, my career. But, you know, these guys are fighters. These guys live a life that is completely unmatched to some of the things that we go through. And if he wants to step back into that cage with a possible McGregor or a possible Oliveira, or, you know, of course, Arman, everyone's, you know, no one talks about Arman because that guy's scary. But trust me, whichever fight comes next for Gaethje, I think could be a tougher fight than Topuria, because Topuria wanted to box with a guy who hits like a bright line. That's the problem. Certain fighters, and style makes fights. I was telling all my buddies, listen, Justin Gaethje, if there is one person that can go into a phone booth and strike and go back at you and come in even harder, is Justin Gaethje. That guy heals very quickly. He gains his energy very quickly, and he is so durable that, like he says, it needs to be studied. And styles make fights. Topuria, a great fighter, amazing jabs, amazing body shots, but it came a point where a punch is a punch. And if you take a punch from Justin Gaethje, just make sure that you can take another one, because the guy will not stop. The guy will not stop, and that is the difference between some fighters. You can't play this mixed match where, because this fighter beat this fighter is also going to lose. No, it's the UFC. Those guys have been on the top for 10, 15 years. And when you're that skillful, anything can happen. Styles make fights. Amazing card. Everything from the music to the lights to the time frame to the president being there, to some of the guests. I mean, everything. It was so cool to see how an American sport is just being broadcasted throughout the world, and it's a perfect mixture. You know, we talk a lot about America being a melting pot, and we are a melting pot, not because we have so many different races and so many different ethnicities or cultures here in America. We are a melting pot because every single person out there, every single person in here, every American has a contribution to make to this great nation. That is what makes us a melting pot. It's not, remember this, it is not how different we all are. It is what we can bring in that is different. And everything that we must bring in is something that must be culturally acceptable and defining within the American system. And everything involved in that event was just truly, to that point, amazing from beginning to end. I was so moved by every single part of it. Yeah, I think this cannot be topped. Super overjoyed by the good weather they had, by how everything ended. Justin Gaethje win was just over the top. I freaking jumped out of my chair like a freaking kid, man. It was just unbelievable. That guy deserves his flowers. Topuria, he's gonna come back stronger, hopefully, in the future. He stops with all the funeral antics. I get it. It's a show, cool, but sometimes things happen, and sometimes you just got to be a little humble in life, man. You got to be a little bit humble, because in the fight game is serious. Fight game is serious. But yes, that is my few points on this event. I hope to everyone that tuned in that they enjoyed it as well. I think this makes the sport even more popular. I think it was a perfect way to combine the patriotism we Americans feel in this country. And I gotta say, you know, just super happy about everything.